There's nothing more boring than watching football and kind of already knowing what the outcome of the game is going to be. The element of surprise and opportunity is what all underdogs want to capitalise on. So today we're going to be taking a look at some of football's greatest underdog stories. And first of all is the 2013 FA Cup final. Manchester City against Wigan Athletic, a game that most people thought was already over with before it started. Now the 2012-13 Premier League was when Manchester City finally started to come good. And for Wigan Athletic, well, it will be the season that they would finally get relegated after season upon season, just about surviving. Wigan Athletic enjoyed an 8-year stint in the Premier League between 2005 and 2013, however it was never really convincing. For Wigan at the time, they had players such as Callum McManaman, Jordi Gomez, and of course Ben Watson, who will play a big part in the final. But if you compare that to the likes of Yaya Toure, Sergio Aguero, and Carlos Tevez for Manchester City, it's clear to see why most people thought that this final was already a done deal before it started. Wigan would pick up an astonishing 3-0 win away at Everton in the quarter-final of the FA Cup, and then an easy 2-0 win over Millwall in the semi-final, taking them to the final against Manchester City. The first half was rather underwhelming, but the game would take a turn when Zabaleta took out Callum McManaman in the second half, earning himself a second yellow card and getting himself sent off. In the 91st minute, Wigan would have a corner and Ben Watson would score a fantastic header, looping over Joe Hart. And that was that. Wigan would win the FA Cup. Now, the ironic thing is in the same season, Wigan would also get relegated to the Championship, meaning that in the next season they had a situation where they were in the Championship, but in the Europa League because they qualified by winning the FA Cup. Everybody had already written Wigan off, and the fact that they went and won is just such a great story. But before we move on, if you do enjoy this sort of content, then make sure to subscribe to the channel, and maybe after this video you should look back and watch a few of my other videos. Next up, we have Greece winning the 2004 European Championships. Now, prior to the 2004 Euros held in Portugal, Greece had not competed in the European Championships for 24 years because they'd failed to qualify. Teams such as Germany, Spain and Italy, who you'd expect to go really far in the competition, were all eliminated in the group stages. Greece would knock France out in the quarterfinals, and Portugal would eliminate England and the Netherlands in the knockout stages to meet them in the final. See, the funny thing is that before the 2004 European Championships, Greece were ranked 35th in the world. Now for reference, the current 35th ranked team in the world is Poland. So what this really is the equivalent of Poland nowadays winning the European Championships, which seems virtually impossible. As for the final itself against Portugal, well, it wouldn't be the prettiest or best game of football you've ever watched. In fact, Greece only had one shot on target in the whole game, and well, that was the goal. The goal came through Charistas in the 57th minute, and that's all she wrote. Truly one of international football's greatest upsets. Next up, we have Leicester winning the Premier League in the 2015-16 season. Now, what makes this really interesting is in the previous Premier League season, Leicester finished 14th in the league, amassing just 41 points, which is not really much better than relegation form. In fact, they were only 6 points above the relegation zone. The winners of the Premier League in the 2014-15 season were Chelsea, 8 points clear of Manchester City. When you look at the 2015-16 Premier League table, there's not really any other good contenders. Leicester won the league with 81 points and Arsenal came second with 71, which is incredibly low for second place. And Chelsea, who won the league the season before, finished 10th, only amassing 60 points. But despite Leicester's rise almost coming out of thin air, Leicester had a really good team. Players like Jamie Vardy, who scored 24 goals in the league that season. Also the likes of Riyad Mahrez, N'Golo Kante, and Kasper Schmeichel would play a big part. The likes of Jamie Vardy not only would score 24 goals in that season, he'd score in 11 consecutive Premier League games, which is a record. A combination of Leicester just clicking and being absolutely on fire, and just everybody else in the Premier League having a bad season was the perfect storm for a massive underdog story. And honestly, an upset like this with a team like Leicester, who previously finished 14th, winning the Premier League, I'm not sure whether we'll actually ever see something similar to this again. So I think we've got to talk about Bayer Leverkusen's domestic unbeaten season last year in the 2023-24 season. And honestly, it's made more impressive by the season before. Leverkusen finished 6th on just 50 points, a whole 21 points off Bayern Munich in first position. What's also very interesting is Leverkusen would destroy Bayern Munich, who won the previous season, and for however many previous seasons, by a whopping 3-0. And they'd also score an incredibly late equaliser in the 94th minute to draw 2-2 against Bayern Munich. at the Allianz too. Throughout the season, Leverkusen will make a trend out of just leaving it late pretty much every single game, whether it was a late equaliser and for the most part a late winner. And players such as Florian Wirtz, Alejandro Grimaldo, Granit Xhaka and many more completely and utterly stood out. They'd win the league with a staggering 90 points, 17 points clear of Stuttgart in second place and 18 points clear of the previous season's champions, Bayern Munich, in third. When you actually look at the table, the crazy thing is they scored less goals than Bayern Munich that season, but the defensive record was just way better. They finished the season with 28 wins, 6 draws and 0 losses in the league. Leverkusen would also go on to win the DFB Pokal, going unbeaten once again all the way throughout the campaign. Now unfortunately, they'd completely and utterly fall apart in the final of the Europa League. They almost made it a treble, but a hat-trick from Ademola Lookman saw them off. Next up, we've got Porto's Champions League win in the 2003-04 season. Now at the time, Porto were pretty dominant in the Liga Portugal, winning the league in the 2002-03 season, the year before they won the Champions League, and also winning the league in the 2003-04 season, the same season that they actually won the Champions League. Now, despite Porto's domestic success, the Portuguese league is, well, not one of the best in Europe, let's say. Meaning that Porto were complete underdogs. No one expected Porto to go and win it. But if anyone could have won it with Porto, it would have been a young Jose Mourinho. Now, despite winning the domestic league the year previous, they actually didn't qualify for the Champions League. They ended up in the Europa League and, well, they actually won it. They'd beat Lazio 4-1 in the first leg of the semi-final before a 0-0 draw away at Lazio where both teams got red cards. Picking up a 3-2 win in the final against Celtic where once again both teams would get red cards. Now, the UEFA Cup, as it was back then, was a massive achievement for Porto, and nobody would have thought the Champions League would be the next one to come the next season. At the time, Porto had the likes of Carlos Alberto, Deco, and Ricardo Carvalho. Now, it's clear that those players being the highlights of the team would mean a tactical masterclass from Mourinho would be necessary to win the Champions League, and, well, that's what happened. Porto would face Deportivo La Coruña in the semi-final of the Champions League. In the home leg, they drew 0-0 with Deportivo getting a red card, and in the away leg, they won 1-0 with Deportivo getting a red card once again. Meaning they will face Monaco in the final, who were also a pretty big shock to be there. No one expected them to be there. They also beat Chelsea over 2 legs in the semi-final. But in the final, Porto were too strong and Mourinho's tactics were too much for Monaco. Porto won 3-0 and it was pretty easy for them as well. So to be honest, it wasn't just an upset for Porto to win, but for the Champions League final to be Monaco against Porto, something that I guess nobody would have really expected. Well, that is 5 of football's greatest upsets. Let me know what you think. And if you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave some suggestions in the comments, whether it's other topics that you want me to make videos on, or maybe if you want me to do another video with some more underdog stories, just let me know. But that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, then maybe you should, well, watch this video that's on screen now. YouTube thinks that you'll enjoy it. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.